Okay, guys, so welcome to the first week of the six weeks. This will be our fourth week of distance learning, and our next unit that we're going to cover is Australia. So today I'm going to go over a little bit of the physical geography, and then later in the week and next week we'll start going more in depth about the culture of Australia. Okay, so our first vocabulary word for the week is coral reef. Now, coral reefs are rock-like structures built by layers of coral organisms. To make things simple, you've seen these underwater plants, guys, right, in movies and documentaries. A lot of the times these plants turn into rock shapes, okay? And you can see them here. They have different shapes. Some are formed in ovals, some are formed in circles, some have no shape whatsoever. But what you have to remember is that these actually are living organisms. They're like plants, but underwater. They also need oxygen, but they get their oxygen from the water itself. Okay, so these are coral reefs, guys, and these are located off the coasts of Australia. Australia is very well known for the coral reefs. So if you go to Australia one day on vacation, most likely the tour guides will take you underwater so you can see the coral reefs. Okay, and our second vocabulary term is an atoll. An atoll is a ring-shaped reef or reef islands or chains of islands made up of coral. So you just saw those underwater plants, right? Sometimes they form rings, okay, like this, rings of islands. This is exactly what an atoll is. And you'll also find these off the coast of Australia as well, guys. Okay, some quick facts about Australia. Number one, 90% of Australians live off the coast, guys. Okay, and I'll go over why they live off the coast in just a bit. Okay, I just need you to know that 4 out of 5 Australians live on the coast. They do not live inland. Okay, Australia is home to 21 of the 25 most venomous snakes on Earth. So just think of it. There's 25 venomous snakes in the whole planet. Australia is home to 21 of them. Okay, now I went ahead and researched the most venomous snake in the world, and that snake lives in Australia. Okay, that snake is called the Indian taipan, and if it bites you guys, it takes 45 minutes to kill you. Okay, that's a very short amount of time. Imagine you're in the desert and the snake bites you. You have 45 minutes to either get an anti-venom, get someone to extract the venom for you, or go to the hospital. Now, you're not going to make it to the hospital in 45 minutes, so you either have some anti-venom or you better have someone to extract that venom for you guys out of your body, because in 45 minutes you would be dead. Now, 45 minutes is what scientists say, but many people that live in Australia have actually said that the Indian taipan kills you in 20 minutes or less. Okay, in Australia you also have all these animals like venomous scorpions as well. Okay, and we're going to cover that when we cover culture and animal life in Australia next week. Australia is almost as big as the United States, and you can see this image here. You can see this image. This is Australia. Notice how it's just almost as big as the United States when we talk about land. All right. Another fun fact. The very first police department or the very first police force in Australia was made up of well-behaved convicts. Now, that's a fun fact I'm going to do further research on because I found that rather interesting. So the very first police department was actually made up of well-behaved prisoners in Australia. Okay? And the last fun fact. When you think of camels, you think of the Middle East, right? You think of Israel, you think of Egypt, you think of Saudi Arabia, and you might think that camels actually come from the Middle East. Well, no. The majority of camels that are in the Middle East actually come from Australia, guys. Okay? Australia has a very big population of camels, and what they do, they send those camels over to the Middle East. So that's where you see a lot of camels in the Middle East as well. Okay, guys, so I want to talk about the Southern Hemisphere real quick. At the beginning of the year, we studied latitude and longitude, okay? And we know that these lines start at 0, okay? We know that latitude runs from side to side, and we know that longitude runs from up and down, right? Now, I want to talk about the line that runs from side to side, okay? This line that you see here, that's 0 degrees latitude, and we call this the equator, okay? Now, whatever sections of land are south of this equator, we call that the southern hemisphere, okay? And as you can see, Australia is on the southern hemisphere as well, along with parts of Africa, countries like South Africa and Madagascar, and sections in South America, countries like Peru, Argentina, Ecuador, Paraguay, Uruguay. Those are also part of South America and part of the southern hemisphere. Okay. Now, there is another country as well, right off the coast of Australia, which I will talk about in just a minute, and it's called New Zealand. Okay, and I want you to pay attention to the similarities in the flag between New Zealand and Australia. Okay, so I want to talk about why Australia is not also known as the island country, guys. Okay, so Australia is known as the island country because it is surrounded by water. You have the Indian Ocean, the Pacific Ocean, the Coral Sea, the Southern Indian Ocean. All these oceans surround Australia. Okay, Australia is also its only continent as well. So it's the only country that is also its own continent. Okay, that's what makes it unique from the rest of the continents and the rest of the other countries. The climate is very dry in Australia, especially inland. When I say inland, I mean the parts that are in the center of Australia. As a matter of fact, remember how I told you that most people live off the coast of Australia? That's because all the rain in Australia happened along the coast or the areas next to water. Okay, that's why 4 out of 5 Australians live off the coast of Australia, and very few people live in the desert, guys. Okay, temperatures are extremely hot in the desert. Now, what happens when it's very dry and it's very hot? You get the possibility of forest fires, which is why Australia was going through forest fires about maybe 4 or 5 months ago. It was all over the news. So you had kangaroos dying, you had koalas dying, you had all these wildlife animals being killed because of the climate change in Australia. And this is the flag of Australia. I want you to compare this flag to the New Zealand flag. You're going to see how similar they are. Okay, so I want to talk about New Zealand real quick. New Zealand is made up of 2 islands. You have the North Island and the South Island, and it's located southeast of Australia. You do have a mountain range in New Zealand, which is much shorter than other mountain ranges in the world, like for example the Rocky Mountains or the Himalayan mountains. They only elevate up to 12,000 feet. Okay, and New Zealand is very beautiful, guys. You have lots of valleys, you have mountainous regions, forests. A lot of people actually go retire in New Zealand because it's very beautiful, and because the style of life is very cheap as well in New Zealand. Okay, and this is the flag of New Zealand. Notice how similar it is to Australia's flag. In the top left-hand corner, you're going to see what is the English flag, and that's because Britain used to colonize what was Australia and New Zealand. Okay, so Australia and New Zealand actually used to belong to Great Britain. Okay, and the Queen of England or the King of England was the main ruler of these areas. Now I want to go to Antarctica. Antarctica is on the southern hemisphere as well. It is south of Australia, and it's made up of thick layers of ice that cover the mountains, valleys, and islands. Now, Antarctica wasn't always like this, guys. Okay? Antarctica used to be very green, as a matter of fact. But after the Ice Age, when the poles shifted, Antarctica ended up in the South Pole, right? So it does have the coldest climate on Earth. Temperatures can drop to the negative 120 degrees Fahrenheit, which is extremely, extremely cold. There is no people living there. They only have researchers living in laboratories in Antarctica. And it is the continent with the highest elevation on Earth. It is so high that the oxygen level there sometimes can be a little low. So if you go to the parts of Antarctica that are very elevated, you actually need like an oxygen mask to be able to breathe good, okay, because the air is so thin in Antarctica. Okay, so this was a little mini lesson on Australia, New Zealand, and Antarctica, guys. Some things I want you to remember. Go ahead and do your Edpuzzle for the week. That's posted already. Go ahead and work on your questions for the week as well. That's posted already too. I just posted it about maybe an hour ago. I think it's only like 12 questions, so it's pretty easy this time. It's only 2 vocabulary terms and 12 questions, guys. Also, don't forget to register for next year. I posted the link to register. We need a lot of people to register, guys. We still have like maybe we have over 100 kids that still need to register, and this is important because if you don't register, you don't get a schedule for next year. Okay, so if you want to know what your class are going to be next year, if you want to compare schedules with your friends, when you come pick up your schedule, you need to register today. Okay, go ahead and register, guys. The link is on the bottom. Get your parents, click on the link, and have your parents register you for next year. If you have any questions, you know I'm always available during my office hours from 11 to 12 and 3 to 4. Okay, you all stay safe. I miss you guys. I hope to see you soon. Peace out.